Okay, so good evening and welcome to General Counsel of November 9th. I first would like to begin with any identification of any media on the line.
Victoria Gray from the Turtle Island News.
Good evening, Victoria.
Good evening.
Okay, seeing no other media on the line, that will lead us into, and again, just want to say nyawa to Amber Squire again for opening us up prior to live stream. Number 3, are there any changes or additions or deletions to the agenda? I know just Councillor Sherry Lynn will be running a little late, but has asked me to add a new business item for her towards the end of the agenda. I'll add that item for her. Is there anyone further that has any new business items? Okay, seeing or hearing none, then I will look to a motion, a mover and seconder to adopt the General Council agenda of November 9th. Moved by Audrey, seconded by Michelle. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. That leads us into, we do have one delegation this evening, which Rod Whitlow, our environmental lead, that's going to be speaking on a proposal, as well as Councillor Michelle, who is going to be also speaking from a student graduate hat this evening, I believe. So I'll pass the floor maybe over to Michelle first, and then we can also look to the introduction into Rod and get into discussion. Over to you, Michelle.
Sounds good, and thanks, Chief. And yeah, just to clarify, I'm putting on that student hat this evening for this presentation, actually, in particular. And so just to give everybody a little bit of background, I don't believe the full council has seen the entire proposal, but you do have the briefing note that was submitted to you. So just a Cole's version of what we're applying for and how I'm involved. So as we know, we've heard many health concerns from our community members. A lot of environmental contaminants, one being radon. And so if you read the briefing note, you would see that we actually did some radon testing in businesses back in 15-16. From there, we did detect that there was one business who had higher levels than normal. A mitigation plan was put in place and that was remedied. And so what we're looking to do moving forward is test individual homes, because we didn't do that 5 years ago. And so, as you know, or might not know, radon is linked to lung cancer. And so what we're doing is submitting an application in partnership with Six Nations Housing to obtain funds to train technicians along with students so that they can job shadow to go in and do this testing with the homes. So this application actually did go forward. Councillor Wright has read it, reviewed it, and submitted his letter of support. And so why it's coming before council this evening is because environment will not meet prior to this meeting. And so in order for the application to be submitted, a band council resolution is required. And so just should the application be approved, this study will go through the formal Six Nations Research Ethics Committee. And I'm anticipating hopefully early next year, we'll have a response on our application. At this point, I am the principal investigator on the application. However, there will be technicians and those scientists familiar with radon and those chemicals on the team. And so again, environment is really moving forward because we know that we need to be doing a lot more with our community with regards to the environmental contaminants that we see. So with that, I'm actually going to maybe Rod, if you could speak a minute or two in regards to the overall proposal, and then we'll open it up for questions. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Michelle. So yeah, this is part of the First Nations Environmental Contaminants Program. It's a long-running program through Health Canada, Indigenous Service Canada. Some of you may remember the Eagle Project, and then there was, following the Eagle Project in the 90s, this one morphed into that. So it's an ongoing national pot of money that deals with First Nations community south of 60 it deals mostly with environmental contaminants and pollutants, but Health Canada and the scientific community have recognized that radon gas is the #2 cause of lung cancer. So they've tacked it on as an environmental contaminant. So this proposal, if it's approved, they'll go through a screening process, I think in February or March, and it'll start after the new fiscal period after April 1st. It's just a 1-year program. The premise of it is more of an environmental monitoring program, and it falls within the criteria of the funding protocol. And we can do some assessments of some homes in the community. I think the way we worded it in the proposal was upwards of 100 homes. There may be money in the budget to go further than that, but that would give us a good snapshot to see, are we finding homes with more than 200 BQs is the units of measure, BQ per meter cubed. In that case, then there's mitigation that can take place, but it's not covered. The mitigation is not covered under this proposal. So we have a letter of support from Karen Bunbury, the Director of Housing, to say if we do find a number of homes with the level of radon gas beyond the Health Canada guideline, then we would submit a subsequent proposal to deal with the mitigation. So it's a fairly straightforward proposal. Again, it's an environmental monitoring. We're going to be working through Six Nations Housing. There's an online course that you can complete and pay the exam fee, and then you're recognized as Health Canada as being a qualified person to conduct the testing. So it's an opportunity to increase our capacity in that regard. So we're planning on upwards of 2 people. And they'll be coordinated through Six Nations Housing, and we're working in cooperation with Six Nations Polytech, the STEAM Academy. So Christopher Martin has agreed to have provided learning opportunities for his students enrolled in his program to job shadow and learn more about how to do environmental monitoring and how to improve community relations and to generate a report. So there'll be opportunities to raise awareness amongst the community through, if we're back to community-based events like career health fairs or Community Awareness Week. So we'll be looking for those types of opportunities to educate the community about the risks associated with exposure to radon gas. So I'll leave it at that and open it up for questions.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Nyawa, Rod, and Michelle for bringing this item forward. I'll now open the floor for any questions or comments. I first see Nathan has his hand up.
Chief, and thanks, Michelle and Rod, for bringing this forward. Definitely, when I read the information provided, definitely saw the need in terms of looking at it from not only the health standpoint, but also that environmental standpoint. Also, the important thing that I felt is we're going forward in developing our department. And the importance around this is, and I've said this before, we just can't snap our fingers and develop a department. We need information like this as baseline data. If environmental is going to be successful, it needs that monitoring component. And it's information like this that we need going forward to ensure that the department has a baseline to start monitoring on a number of fronts. So I also see this as a continuation of our development of that department with information like this. So there's a number of fronts that this made sense in my head, and also wanted to acknowledge kind of the little wonkiness around the approvals that we're seeking, and just reiterate that we're just looking to get the proposal in on the funding side. And once that's completed, my understanding is, and it's in the motion, that we'll seek those approvals required for Six Nations community ethics as well. So the approval is not done. This is just to get the proposal in on the funding side. It still has to go through a number of processes. So just wanted to acknowledge that as well.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. Thank you for that, Nathan. Are there any further questions or comments? I see Audrey has her hand raised.
I think it's a really good idea to get the health of our community checked to make sure that we don't have any radar, and if we do, then it's good to know that there is a way to mitigate it, and that would be a really good idea. But Rod, who are the two people being getting their testing? You said that two of them will have to pay an exam fee. So who's being tested? And I guess the timeline for this, if you are successful with the funding proposal. And the second question is, or third question is, what happens if the funding is not there?
Yes, so thank you for your question. So the two candidates that will take that will actually take the online training course. So there's two portions of it, the testing and the mitigation. You do those courses online, and then you pay an exam fee, and then you actually have a qualification as a specialist to do the testing. Those positions have yet to be determined. So the way the budget, there's flexibility within the budget, so that if the housing department or the committee that oversees housing, if they want to have some role in who's selected for that position, but it technically could be the existing housing inspectors. It could actually be students as well. They just have to complete the exam online and pass it, and then what we're planning to do is we have a scientific expert by the name of Luke Lance. So he works in Elliott Lake, and he works with a number of First Nations in that part of Ontario where they do have elevated levels of radon, almost to the extent that their children welfare basically has to do a survey before foster kids are placed in home to make sure that the radon gas levels are not extreme. So it's a big issue. It's not just unique to Northern Ontario. Health Canada fact sheets have been in circulation for 5 years now, and they do show one study in Brant County where 10% of the households were found to be above the acceptable limit of 200. So that's the first question. If the timeline is probably it'll get approved probably in April, and this is a 1-year program, so it'll end up by March 2023, and we'll start off with a demonstration, like from start to finish of one selected household. We'll have a number of webinars and training opportunities for the two main coordinators and the STEAM Academy students. And then we have the equipment, and then that's when we start recruiting, putting an invitation across the community to see who would like to participate in this study. It can be anywhere from 30 days to 3 months, and the monitor will be in the house, and we'll give instructions as to where to place it, and then the meter takes a reading, an average, and then we record those. So there will have to be a consent from the participating households that aside from not any personal identifiers, they will have to be able to allow us to record the readings. And then if for the follow-up, again, Health Canada has made this a priority. They significantly promote this across the country, and that was one of the criteria for this funding, is that we have to make a commitment to, if we do find houses above the threshold, that we do submit a subsequent proposal to deal with the mitigation. So I know that Atlantic Region, I think Saskatchewan have all did similar studies, and there is funding through the federal government to cover off some of the mitigation. So I'll just leave it at that.
Do a follow-up, Mike?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that, Rod. Yes, go for it, Audrey. Then I'll shift over to.
Okay, I'm interested in. My question is back to Rod again. How is radon gas produced, and how does it? I guess is held underground. Is it like in veins, so that you and your neighbors in your area where you live could all be on radon, and then across the road they could be free from it? I guess, how is it? How does it conduct itself?
Yeah, so it's uranium. It's a breakdown of uranium in soil. So it's a natural, there's certain levels of that across the country. But when I talked to Luke Lance, he did say people foresee this to be a northern problem because they say it's the Canadian Shield and it's that type of rock. But he said it's prevalent in gravel. So you're right though, Councillor Audrey, is that there are instances it's going to be depending on where you are. The reserve has a unique glacial feature that many people may not be aware of. If you look at the soils of Brant County, we have, I think, upwards of 6 drumlins, which are glacial deposits. And so there's a different soil type there. So there's till and there's gravel and whatnot. So there's also some associations and some scientific studies around the world with radon and gypsum, so in limestone. So gypsum is a derivation of limestone. So that's a point of concern as well. So yeah, that's how it gets in the soil and in the environment, and Health Canada is recognizing that it's important to assess it even in Southern Ontario.
Yeah, well, Rod.
Okay, now after that, Rod and Audrey, I'll now shift over to Wendy.
Thanks, Mark. I'll move on the motion, and included in there, can we attach the bottom piece as well? Pending approval, research has to be approved from the ethics committee.
Definitely. Thank you. Thank you for that, Wendy. So there's a moved by Wendy on the motion. Is there a seconder? Second by Audrey. Are there any further questions or comments? Okay, seeing or hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. Motion to waive second reading. Moved by Wendy, second by Audrey, all in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. Okay, thank you again, Rod, for joining us this evening, and Michelle for bringing this item forward. And we'll look forward to a status update on the proposal. Hopefully, we are successful within that.
Thank you.
Okay, Council, that leads us into our next item on our agenda, which is the adoption of the General Council minutes of October 26th.
I'll move.
Sorry, I have a mover, moved by Carrie, seconded by Michelle. Are there any further questions or comments in relation to the minutes of October 26th? Okay, seeing or hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. We do have another set of minutes needing approval, which is the General Council minutes of October 12th. I believe both sets, this set is in your Dropbox. Looking for a mover and seconder, or any further questions or comments? Moved by Nathan, seconder. Second by Wendy. Are there any further questions or comments to the minutes of October 12th? Seeing or hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. Our next item is just political updates, and I do want to just pause really quickly, and also I believe you would have seen an email from Christopher in relation to the opposition critics as well as the Ontario Court of Appeal decision. So I want to just touch base with Christopher on that. But just before I go to Christopher, I also just want to provide an update in relation to, I'm sure most of you have seen, today was the beginning of the search at the Mohawk Institute. It was a busy day. A lot of mixed emotions, but nonetheless, our press conference with the Survivor Secretariat, I was one of the speakers today, along with a couple of our survivors, Don and Robbie, in addition to our police chief, as well as a nice young man speaking our language and opening us up and closing us in a good way. So it was a good day, busy day. And nonetheless, we've communicated out our press release and to our statement on the beginning of our search. And so, we really reiterated the fact of the processes that it took place in order to get to where we are today. doing the necessary cultural and ceremonial work that needs to take place. So nonetheless, just wanted to update council there. And like I said, there was quite the few lots rather media that was present, a lot of good questions. Still looking to continue our conversations with Ontario in relation to funding. And so there's some moving items on that piece, and we'll update council on any new information on that. And not sure if there's any questions or comments on that piece. Seeing or hearing none, I want to just check in with Christopher. Christopher, if you can just really quickly walk us through your earlier email in relation to the opposition critics in the Ontario Court of Appeal decision.
Chief, thanks. So, as noted earlier today, the Leader of the Opposition announced his shadow cabinet. These are the critic portfolios that the official opposition will be using in Parliament to critique and interact with the federal cabinet. On Crown Indigenous relations, the new critic, the new shadow minister is MP Gary Dahl, and for ISK, the new critic is Jamie Schmale, who was previously at Crown Indigenous Relations. I sent along some details about some other positions in the shadow cabinet, so you can see all of that there, as well as the full list. And then the other item was an interesting court decision that came down yesterday from the Ontario Court of Appeal, which basically indicates that the federal government has been underpaying in terms of fulfilling its side of the 1850 treaty. The treaty affects some descendants of the initial Anishinaabe who were signatories to that treaty, as well as 23 other First Nations. The federal government, it's my understanding, has been transferring to these individuals, I think it's $4 a year, and the court determined that that is actually not a just or accurate, if you will, fulfillment of their end of that treaty obligation. So it's an interesting court decision. I tried finding the text of the actual decision, but the Ontario Court of Appeal hasn't posted it yet on their website. But once I get a hold of that, I'll send that along as well. It could have some implications for Six Nations case, but certainly interesting regardless.
Okay, Nyawa, thank you, Christopher, for that verbal update. Just wanted to pause there as well and see if there's any questions or comments in relation to those two items. Okay, seeing or hearing none, again, just thank you for providing that update, Christopher. Look forward to watching that closely in next steps.
Nyawa, Chief.
Okay, the moving into scheduling, Council, we've just had the Indian Day School on-site at the gathering place, which to my understanding, day one was somewhat lesser of a turnout. However, day two was very busy. We had discussions, Tammy as well. We're going to be furthering as to how we can get those individuals in the team back down to community at least a couple more times. We need to stress the importance of that deadline, making sure, again, we've talked about these pieces in relation to, making sure that all eligible people get their applications in on time and or need further assistance filling out their applications. So we are going to be engaging with them to, again, get them back in community. I know they're touring across the country. However, again, we do have majority of schools on that list. So that's going to be kind of our way in terms of, reasoning as to why we need them back in community to further assist community members. So maybe I'll just pause there and touch base with Tammy. Tammy, if there's anything further on your end that you would like to add to this item?
No, other than that, that's very accurate that at this time they weren't planning on returning to the community, but that's something that we're going to be following up with the letter, because it's so important for our community members to make sure that they have all the support that they need to complete the applications. And if they're not going to extend the deadline for applications, then it's all the more important to get as many sessions in before July 2022 as possible.
Exactly. And thank you so much for that, Tammy. Okay, that's and just back over to scheduling. We have BNI this tomorrow, rather. Our stat holiday, obviously, for Remembrance Day. I know, just want to pause there as well and say nyawa to Helen. Helen, I had requested to, on our behalf, join Credit First Nations ceremony, Remembrance Day ceremony this past Sunday. And also just to note as well, I did speak with our Veterans Association. They laid the wreath on our part, but mind you, with COVID, they were taking their stance but they were very cautious, so they didn't really invite anybody, and it wasn't as big as they wanted. However, they still did their duty and laid our wreaths at our Veterans Park. But also just wanted to say now for Helen, for attending this past weekend. I see Helen has her hand raised.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I had a chance to speak with Stacy, and he's indicated he would like to see us meet and work together. Get together, because we haven't met them yet. But I guess we would wait till the new council is coming up soon. Their elections, I think, a couple weeks, December or something.
Just on that as well, really quickly, Helen, on that note as well, we've made contact in my last conversation with Mayor Davis, and we will be looking to engage on our tri-council meeting, at least to have introductory. I know they're going to be coming up to an election year too. However, we still feel it's important, just given some of the issues that have arose from the last few weeks and months. And so we'll be looking to do that with the county and the city of Brantford as well very soon. So we want to maintain and at least look to our relationships with our neighboring communities and how we can progress that. So thank you for that, Helen. Leading into the following week, we have general finance, which is on the 15th, and then corporate and emergency services on the 17th, as well as political liaison on the 22nd, and then our next general council meeting on the 23rd. I know there's many other meetings in between these. These are just our meetings that are all via Zoom in front of community. With that being said, that's our scheduling portion. I'll now move to new business items, which I see Councillor Sherry Lynn has joined us now. Sherry Lynn, I did put on the agenda your new business item, and so I'll pass the floor over to you at this point.
Okay, thank you. My question is, when are we going back into the chambers? Because it's been asked for the past couple months. So can there be a date set that we will be back in the chambers?
Yes, if I can just really quickly just check in with Darren and Tammy on that. I know we've been having our conversations. We do weekly check-ins, the Chief's Office and the SAO, and that's been on our agenda. I know there's a few items. We want to make sure, obviously, that everything is installed in plexiglass and so forth. So that will be happening, and just a few other items on the building itself. So maybe if I could just start with Darren. And then if Tammy has anything to add as well. But I do agree as well, we will look to a date to get back into council in person and go from there. So over to you, Darren, for any comments.
Yeah, we had an issue with the roof, well, there's been some leaking, so we need to get that repaired. I think we were trying to target the end of the month or early December. So I think maybe if Tammy has anything other to add, we had to do some other pieces with AVTV, like for the video portion, to be able to still do our broadcasts, etc., to community. So there was some installations that had to happen there, but we don't want to jeopardize that equipment if there's potential for leaks. So those are some of the couple of the points that need to be addressed. But my understanding is we should be able to get in there. We were targeting around the end of the month, but Tammy, I don't know whether that's realistic based on any additional information. I'm working with Shirley as well on this.
It really depends on when the roof work is able to get done, because as we'd want to make sure that it's safe for everybody to be there as well. So as far as we know, there is no structural issues, but We do know that it has affected some of the offices that we've just updated and renovated, as well as the washroom. And so we just need to make sure that it's cleaned up and ready for occupancy.
Just further to that, Chief, it has been assessed, and we've got some contractors lined up to do the work. I'm just not sure of the timing, but I can certainly push them a bit, and we can get a date, I would imagine, within the next week or so. We should be able to get a firm date.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Thank you for that update, Darren and Tammy. Sherry Lynn, is there any further questions or comments? Okay, well, oh, sorry, my apologies. Thank you for bringing that forward, Sherry Lynn. That leads us to our next item, which is the motion to adjourn. Is there a mover to adjourn? Moved by Michelle, seconder. Second by Nathan. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. Thank you to all for joining us this evening at General Counsel. Looking forward to seeing you next time.